Nobody cares about you. Can you kill yourself already? You should die. Imagine you logged onto social media and these were the messages that greeted you. These messages were sent to Jessica Laney, a 16-year-old girl who ended her life shortly after receiving them. Why did this happen? How could this happen? And her page is still online, available for anyone to visit, with this being the last comment that she responded to. Teenagers and adults like Jessica Laney are tormented each day by the people who hide behind a screen with the purpose of spreading hate and psychological abuse. How many of you have a smartphone? If it's in your hand, raise it up. Chances are, if it's in your hand, you have checked it one or more times since I began speaking. Or perhaps you intended to do so before I finish. Maybe you don't even realize. We do this unconsciously. So I challenge you to switch it off. Actively avoid the temptation to distract yourself from this moment that is happening right now and here with all of us. I promise your feed will be updated when you switch it on again. It's 2018, and we have in our hands an incredibly powerful tool, a computer media platform that we can manipulate, and that can likewise manipulate us. It provides direct access to reach anyone, anywhere in the world. So the question remains, what are we doing with this power, this access? Sadly, the story of Jessica Laney is becoming more and more commonplace. According to Forbes, 33.8% of teenagers in the United States have reported to have been cyberbullied, with about half of that number confessing that they have contemplated suicide as a direct result. Remember, this is reported. How many cases go unreported for the same reasons? Not everyone who's been abused speaks up, and not everyone knows that they have been a target. Cyberbullying can range from posting rumors online, embarrassing photos of someone else, calling inappropriate names, or even pretending to be someone else. But maybe that's not you. Maybe you engage with social media, but still don't fit into any of these categories. Can we justify social media as a healthy, viable use of your time? That depends. First, there's been a reported increase in young people confessing feelings of loneliness and isolation, which are intensified due to the overuse of social media. We have hundreds of friends online, and we check in with them very frequently. We feed off this constant interaction. So when it stops, we become utterly aware of how lonely it can feel to be alone. This began intensifying in 2007, when a pivotal event changed the world: the release of the iPhone. Such a beautiful, functional device, an app for everything, so you don't have to remember important dates, orient yourself, or even think for yourself, because Siri will do it for you. It was at this point that we began to increasingly tune out of our real life and into our cyber life. And in many cases, the more time you invest in your digital reality, the harder it becomes to settle for actual reality. The loss of physical contact and real-life social engagements, which are necessary, biological human needs, contribute to the sense of loneliness. But aren't social and digital media platforms intended to connect us? then why do they seem to drain our energy and self-esteem? This leads to a second impact: overuse, dependence, perhaps even the fear of being without our beloved device. Our phones are the first thing we look at when we wake up. And for many of us, it is also the last thing we look at before we go to sleep. This vicious cycle pulls us in like a vortex. Teens are especially susceptible, for we spend more than 1/3 or 9 hours of our day using social media. Let's break this down. We're active 12 or more hours a day, which means we spend on average 7 at school, 2 to 3 in after-school activities, 1 to 2 with family, if we are lucky. We complain about a lack of time, yet we disregard hours spent looking for validation through a screen. Let's be honest. We do care about how many likes our post on Instagram gets. We do care about that unknown user that unfollowed us, and we don't know why. We do care about the probability that our latest selfie may be lost in the newsfeed of our crush. I'll speak for my generation, the post-millennials, or Generation Z. We're teenagers, and from a psychological standpoint, our self-validation, self-esteem, and self-concept are a direct result of what others think of us on social media. We tend to be insecure and attention-seeking. We don't want our friends, our followers, to forget that we exist and that we matter. This doesn't just affect normal people like us. Former model Isena O'Neill quit social media because she was constantly comparing herself to others. Naturally, she admitted that her self-worth started to depend merely on likes. Do you ever feel a loss of individuality when you emulate a trend or a celebrity to be noticed? According to Yale, humans are hardwired to over-imitate. But where's the line? Our limit. Deep down, we know we shouldn't compromise the authenticity of our identity that makes us who we are. But none of us is immune to societal pressures of public image that are now tied to social media. And if you spend your days denying who you are to become more like someone else, you live in conflict with yourself. This insecurity can lower self-esteem, self-acceptance, and self-worth. Then, we may find ourselves, consciously or unconsciously, turning over the same question in our minds. Why is my life not like theirs? See the problem here? It can lead to unfounded jealousy over a life that doesn't show the full truth. Instead, a contrived sense of reality that is devoid of pain, suffering, and ugliness, which can totally distort some of the most significant experiences that we must pass through in order to make life memorable. There aren't valleys without mountains. Remove the mountains, and you're left with endless, even plains that lack the contrast that makes life interesting and worth living. But still, we self-deprecate because no one actually enjoys seeing Juanita's vacation pictures in Bora Bora while eating pizza on your couch. But we still do it. We still click on her stories, pictures, and videos, even though we know how it'll make us feel. But what if we didn't? What if we could instead feel grateful for the time we get to spend on our couch eating pizza? Surely, someone in the world would give anything to be in our position. Someone who goes to bed hungry every night. Someone who doesn't have a home or a couch. And we think we are facing hard circumstances because we only have this or that. and it isn't as good as Juanita's. We need to start embracing all of reality by resisting the urge of letting partial truths and unfounded jealousy consume us. In fact, the Nanyang Technological University of Singapore made a study in which they found that feelings of envy caused by social media are directly linked to depression, which is the third media impact. Depression cases can increase from cyberbullying through lesser-known social networking apps. Applications that by themselves are harmless, but that can hurt people at the hands of a user. Some apps allow you to leave anonymous questions or comments to other subscribers. I downloaded one of these apps around 3 years ago that exposed me as a punching bag for anonymous comments. You'll notice is the same one that pushed Jessica Laney to ultimately end her life. Why did I do this? I craved validation, was incredibly insecure, constantly afraid of what anyone would think of me. I received a lot of comments. Not all of them were kind. They critiqued my appearance, personality. Some of them even questioned the importance of my existence and the authenticity of my friendships. Last summer, my friends and I planned out a trip to New York. We were all incredibly excited to spend 144 hours together in the Big Apple. We devoted entire months to deciding what we were going to do each day, and the anticipation was overwhelming. However, extenuating circumstances prevented me from exploring the city with my friends. The fear of missing out on that trip haunted me. Fear of missing out. FOMO. It's a thing. You see, I desperately wanted to be there, and knowing that it was impossible magnified the sense of anxiety that I felt. Nevertheless, I still spent hours obsessively contemplating the pictures of my friends. Images flooded my newsfeed, and I watched as they attended Broadway's biggest hits, bought twinning shirts, rode bicycles around, and ultimately had the fun that I couldn't be a part of. All while I stayed at home on my couch eating pizza. Then, I received an anonymous comment on my profile that said, "They didn't invite you to New York." And a second one saying, "Metida y de paso excluida," which I didn't have the courage to answer, because I tapped into a fear that it was probably true. Maybe I am una metida. Maybe they didn't want me there. Maybe they're better off without me. Looking back, I asked myself, why did I let an unknown user impact my sense of self and my sense of belonging? These users clearly knew me, but didn't have the courage to say those things to my face. Because when writing through an inanimate object, it is easier to disregard feelings, since the device has none. The whole exchange is devoid of humanity. And while you can fix a broken device, once you break a person, it's not easy to put them together again. No one was able to put the pieces of Jessica Laney together again. And these issues are not created by the post-millennials. Rather, this division and dehumanization that impacts societies as we mishandle communication tools has been present all throughout history. 1914, the use of propaganda to spread misinformation was a common way to influence public thoughts and actions to push an agenda of war. 1939, overwhelming Nazi propaganda dehumanized Jews in order to excuse genocide. In the United States, Americans of Japanese, Italian, and German descent were targeted as the media spread fear, which culminated in Japanese Americans being consolidated in concentration camps on the West Coast. 55 years later, the Rwandan genocide, when about 800,000 Tutsis were killed in a matter of 100 days, simply because it served the extremist leaders of the Hutus to eliminate them. And by controlling radio stations and newspapers, it was possible to convince hundreds of thousands of civilians to join the ranks. And ordinary people with no military training or affiliation were brainwashed and turned into killers. April of 2018. Circumstances such as these continue in Nicaragua, when conflicting news reports and hype dictate rather than inform the public. These actions do not spread awareness, peace, or understanding. Some of them are not even taken from credible sources. And when fear takes hold, many behave with knee-jerk reactions that transmit fear rather than de-escalate it. Spanish philosopher George Santayana is known to have said, "Those who do not remember their past are condemned to repeat it." Therefore, a driving force bringing me here today is to urge you not to become a footnote on the wrong side of history. If not world history, someone's personal history. I'm neither asking or expecting you to become an activist that is constantly advocating for societal reform. That wouldn't be reasonable. Although it's 100% possible for each one of you to become a user rather than an abuser of digital media. Here's how. Step 1, be aware of the strength of your voice and the power of your access. Step 2, restrain yourself from missing out on your actual life because you're investing on your virtual life. Resist the media vortex. Step 3, get to know yourself and understand yourself. We're all humans. We have the fundamental need to belong. But keep a dose of perspective that allows you to understand that not everything that you see online is real. Step 4, be compassionate toward yourself and others. Think before you act, before you speak, and treat people with kindness. Sometimes a comment can seem insignificant, but the truth is that once you put something out there, you cannot control how it is received. Finally, step 5, take control. I dare you. Own your portion of the cyber interface and treat this with integrity. Don't let a false sense of a perfect life manipulate yourself or others. It's time we prioritize the tools of communication to empower ourselves and our societies. If there's an equal chance of using technology to build each other up rather than tear each other down, then why not use it to support those who seek a positive change in our society? Those who urge us to develop, connect, and unify communities. Imagine a reality where Jessica Laney was instead met with encouraging messages, such as these. Do you think the outcome would have been different? We need to stop letting people and platforms run our lives. You run your life. Be aware. Own your decisions. Treat others and yourself kindly. Be present rather than distracted by fostering the courage to enjoy this perhaps imperfect moment of your real life. And remember, if at any point virtual reality threatens to consume you, you can always log off. Thank you.